Hi, everyone. I am going to start with a question. Who here has read a Nicholas Sparks novel or seen a Nicholas Sparks movie and cried their eyes out? Okay, good. That was the human litmus test. I just want to make sure that we're not all a bunch of androids here. I'm Anna. I'm on the Google Play team, and we are so excited to be hosting Nicholas Sparks here today for this @authors event. So, Nicholas Sparks is the great living American romance novelist. He's written 16 novels and has sold over 80 million copies worldwide. And what's more fascinating is how beautifully these novels translate to the silver screen. Everyone's heard of or seen movies such as The Notebook or Walk to Remember or Message in a Bottle. And his latest is called The Lucky One, and it stars Zac Efron. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Nicholas Sparks to Google.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was hoping we could start off by hearing a little bit about The Lucky One.
Sure. The Lucky One is it's a story that was really inspired by the place I live. I live in New Bern, North Carolina. We're literally surrounded by military bases, so active military personnel are part and parcel with way of life there. So if you're going to write a story with characters who are in their 20s or something, you really have to consider this as being a potential what they do for a living job, so to speak. So this is a story because also, let's go a little further, because they are part and parcel with the town where I live. Beginning in 2003, when they began to be deployed overseas to Iraq and Afghanistan, you would see them both before they left and then when they came back. And every single one of them came back changed, different. Sometimes it was, that, and the level of change really depended upon the experiences they went through. And so you knew that this was a very significant event in their life that they were going through. These were very significant events that profoundly moved them. So I got it in my mind, this picture of this Marine who finds a photograph, right? He finds it in Iraq, buried in the sand. He picks it up, and then you have this image that stays with you, and you say, okay, he finds this photograph, and then I know that when he gets back, he's profoundly changed. So you begin to ask yourself, why? What if? And you begin to spin a story in little ways. And you go through thousands of different ideas and potential things you can do. But eventually the decision was that he begins to regard this photograph as his lucky charm, this talisman, so to speak, that keeps him alive. So he goes to deployment 1, deployment 2, deployment 3. All of his friends end up dying. Everyone in his battalion, his squad, ends up dying. He's the only one left. He's got PTSD to a certain extent. He's got survivor's guilt, and he's got this photograph. And he feels like he's got to heal somehow, but he doesn't know how. So he sets off in search of the person in this photograph. And then of course it's a Nicholas Sparks film, and it's a girl in the picture, and they fall in love, and they have the kissing in the water, rain scene, the shower, all that. After that, it becomes one of my movies. But there you go.
I actually saw a screening of it yesterday, and it was phenomenal, so I recommend everyone go out and see it. Something I've noticed in your movies and novels is that printed materials are very significant, such as, like you talked about in The Lucky One, you have the old photograph, or the message in a bottle, or the missed letters in The Notebook. And just in general, your novels have this really anachronistic quality to them. But nowadays, when we're looking for romance, we go on OkCupid, and we message 100 people and see who messages us back.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you think that love and romance can still exist in the age of the internet, and if so, how?
Of course. It's very interesting. When I write these novels, I do so with the knowledge, the full knowledge that technology changes very rapidly. There's no question about that. And yet, if technology changes fastest, then culture itself changes more slowly. It takes a while for culture to change on a society level, and it takes a much, much longer time for people themselves to change. I mean, the emotions that people go through have not changed very much at all. It's funny, right? I write The Notebook, right? If you've seen the movie, how many people here like that, right? They found it dreadfully romantic, right? Hey, this was set in 1946. You know, you guys were born in what, 1990 or whatever? I mean, these are your grandparents that we're talking about here, or your great-grandparents, right? But it feels real. Why does it feel real? Because when you see that person you fall in love with, right? It feels the same. And it doesn't matter when that is, whether it's 2012, whether it's 1946, or anything like that. So people change slowly. So I write these novels with this. So can these romantic elements exist in today's day and age? Of course they can. Why? Because your emotions don't change. I mean, look, these go back. These don't go back hundreds of years. These go back, 1,000 years. 2,000 years. You look at something like Romeo and Juliet, which was written 500 years ago, right? Look, these two were passionate teenagers, right? And they fall in love, but oh no, just like The Notebook, their families don't get along, right? This stuff, this works at any time, at any age. I put these other elements in, whether it's a letter or a photograph in there. I just like them, right? I just like them. I think they add something to the novel itself. But at the same time, I wrote At First Sight, and there was a very heavy messages coming in on email, and a mystery that was really a little bit more dependent on modern technology. So it really goes to the story itself. Not opposed, not against. I'll use it when it's efficient. But in the end, I'm just writing about these unchanging human emotions, like love.
Thank you. So you yourself are clearly really tech savvy. You're very active across a variety of social media channels, such as Google+, and you have a lot of followers and fans. I'm wondering how this has changed the way you've interacted with your fan base, or if you've ever drawn any inspiration from any of your social media channels.
As far as, yeah, I am very active. It is something that you have to do. It's changing the world. This technology is changing the way people interact. It certainly changes the way that someone like me as an author interacts with fan. I still get a ton of fan mail. I get, I don't know, 500 letters a week or something like that. But I get a lot of email. I get a lot of messages on Google+. I get a lot of people posting comments, and you certainly have to be aware with them. And to me, this is it's an interesting phenomena in that it is a way to interact with fans, of course, and this is wonderful, but to what end? What is the real purpose of that? And I think we're all trying to figure that out. I can certainly say that, we're trying to stay on the cutting edge as much as we're not the cutting edge, though. You guys are. I understand this. We're kind of riding on your cutting edge and trying to figure out the best way to use that to everyone's benefit, whether it would be the fan. What is the best way to benefit the fans for this? And what's the best way to benefit Google? Or what's the best way to benefit my own business, whatever that means? So we're searching, just like everyone else is, for the best way and the possibilities to use that. But as far as drawing inspiration from, let's say, messages that are posted, this is a very dangerous thing to do. It's a litigious society. So really, I have a pretty standard rule, and that is that I don't take story ideas from others, no matter where they come from. So I don't read unsolicited manuscripts. I don't read, here's a story that you should write, because you don't want to write something, then have someone come back and say, oh, I wrote you this letter 3 years ago and you stole this story from me. I just don't want to go down that road. So it's just easier to say no, right across the top.
That makes sense. We at Google are really proud of our engineering culture, and over 50% of Google employees are engineers. But sometimes we're pretty nerdy, and we're not exactly the most romantic crowd. And I'm wondering if you have any advice for those of us that want to do something romantic for a significant other, or are just looking for love in general.
Looking for love, yeah. Boy, yeah. Romantic elements, I think, can really be. There's a couple of things. It really comes down to knowing who you're with, and you have to know them well enough to know kind of what they want, because if you ask my wife, for instance, sometimes the most romantic thing I can do is leave, with the children so she could be alone. She thinks I am just the cat's meow for doing something like this, right? So you have that. So it's knowing what the other really wants, I guess. And then as you can be nerds and technology, but you still got to know some of these great cliches of life. If you're a guy, one of the great pieces of knowledge you must carry with you throughout your married life is happy wife, happy life. This is very, very, very true. And so what does that mean, right? It means, hey, you might send flowers when they don't expect it, you know? And if you're a nerd, you know, you can use the Google Calendar and the alarm will go off on the 12th of every month, and then you don't even have to think about it, but your significant other thinks you are the cat's meow, right? So you just have to maybe think about it once a year. Time to write the letter, time to buy the candy, time to buy a flower. Use your technology and who you are to your advantage, right? And they'll think you're the bomb, right? You're like Noah Calhoun, right? That's it. And then, of course, you do need to learn to kiss romantically in the rain. It is a requirement for the ultimate romantic element, you know. Or, for instance, in the lucky one, you can use an outdoor shower. But, you know, it is a skill that I would highly encourage everyone to master.
What about as a woman? Are there certain things that we can do to be romantic for our men?
You know, it comes down to the relationship itself, and to me, when I create female characters, it's very funny because I generally create all these female characters, whichever novel you read or whichever film you say. These females I create have certain characteristics, and they're the ones I find most attractive. And what are they? Intelligence, passion, sense of humor. But more than anything, it is that I don't want a wishy-washy woman. I don't want her to be defined by me. I want her to be her, whatever that means. For my wife, who doesn't work, you know, she loves children, right? She was born to be a mom, and she's exceptionally good at this. But, you know, if there's a guy that defines her in her life, I guess I'm number 4, right? Because I have 3 sons. I like this, though. You know, I like this. I want them to be who they are. So I guess the main point I'm trying to make from that is be who you are. Don't be defined solely by your relationship. You know, be who you are, whether it's work or family or other friendships. Be who you are, and then find the guy who appreciates this quality in you. And then, of course, if he's doing nice things for you, you do nice things for him. We can get back to the kissing in the rain thing. But, you know, there we go.
Do you have an example of something really romantic you've done for your wife?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I've got all sorts of things. Sure. You know, I mean, you try to do nice things. I wrote her a love letter on Valentine's Day. How's that? You know? And it was a really good letter. I didn't scribble this thing out in like 10 minutes. Now, I wrote it on my computer first. I edited it, got every word right, and then I hand wrote it out. See, that's the way you do it, right? It's using technology with the delete key to your advantage and then going back to the old days.
Wow, it's pretty romantic. I read on your website that you worked a variety of odd jobs before your novel got picked up by an agent, and it seemed pretty lucky. I'm wondering if you know, your life, if your life would have been different had there been the existence of ebooks or the self-publishing revolution when you first started writing.
Ebook and self-publishing, that is something certainly that we're confronting today, and it is a change. I do believe that my own personal belief is that there is something intrinsic in human nature that makes people desire to hear a good story in and whatever medium that comes out in, you know, whether it's a play or a film or a story, an oral story, sitting around the campfire, someone telling a story or reading a story. I just think there's something intrinsic in human nature that desires such a thing. If only maybe it's because it gives us an opportunity to escape our lives for a short period of time. We can live within other characters. We can, have superpowers, like Spider-Man or whatever, if that's your cup of tea, right? It gives us this opportunity to really escape into another world for a short period of time. So I don't know that any of the modern technology changes. Again, it goes back to that human nature, this slow changing emotion. I don't know that it's really going to change. The mediums in which it's delivered will change. And I certainly think that as an author, you have to be aware of these things. And you have to be aware of them, and you have to be ready for the changes. And that's why I'm here, right? Hey, we're trying, right? But, look, I wrote my first novel on a typewriter. For you young people, that's an ancient mechanical device they used you actually rolled paper in, right? And so now, it's computers. Now it's this. A few years ago, there was no Google, right? And so here I am. Now I'm heavily Googled. So you have to be aware of all these changes. And but in the end, from my perspective, I just have to tell a good story and then be aware and take advantage of the best medium to deliver that story. And it changes. And look, we try our best to keep up with these things. And we're here really. Look, I came in with like 15 or 10 people. These people who came with me today, they're not here for me. They hear me all the time. They're here for you guys. They're like, I want to go to Google. Yeah. And I know that's what you think, but they're here to learn how we can do things better. I swear, if I wasn't at Google, none of them would be here, right? They're laughing. Yes, this is true. I understand this because they are here to learn how we can do this better, right? Because we're doing our best to stay on top of these changing trends. But in the end, my job is still just to tell the best story that I can and then have it delivered to the most people that I can.
Thank you. So we're going to take a few audience questions now. So audience members, if you have anything to ask Mr. Sparks, there's a microphone up there and you can line up there. And also, I'll be reading a few questions that your fans posted on your Google Plus page.
Great.
So Jessica Nguyen Fong asks, because your work is so prevalent in the media world, do you feel like you are shaping the way we view love? Do you think your view on love matches that of the books you write, or is it merely a fantasy?
I don't know that I'm shaping love at all, right? Because I think that when I fell in love with my wife, it's the same way any of you who fall in love felt when you fell in love. Again, it goes to these slow changing things. So I don't think I'm shaping it. I'm perhaps reflecting it, because what I do try to do is I don't try to manipulate you into anything, whether it's in the film or whether it's in the novel. I do my best to genuinely evoke the feeling. And what is the difference, you might ask? If you reach a point in the novel where he finally says to he says, I love you, the proper response from the reader is, well, duh. I knew that 8 pages ago. What took you so long? Why'd you hold it in? That's what you want. But if they say, I love you, and you're like, really? Right now? You just met, right? That would be manipulation, whereas I really try to genuinely evoke. So I don't think I'm reflecting it, nor do I really think I'm making it into something unrealistic either. Look, I met my wife on a Monday on spring break in Florida. Okay, and if you have any ideas in your head of what spring break in Florida is like and you've never been there, it's exactly what you're imagining it to be. Met her on Monday, told her we get married on Tuesday. Now, we've been married 23 years. We've had 5 children, right? Here we are. By the way, she laughed at me at this moment. She thought it was a pickup line or something. But it is what it is. So I do think that these, certainly long-lasting love is real. I think that when you fall in love, the emotions you see on screen or in the novel, I think they're pretty much what all of you have experienced or will experience.
So, Nicholas, my name is Winnie. How
Hello,
did you
Winnie.
feel when you watched the movie The Notebook?
Oh, how did I feel? It's interesting. The first time You do it, right? The first time was message in a bottle. So my point is, it changes. The first time you do it, they take you onto the Warner Brothers set. They bring you into this big theater on the set, and you're the only one in there. And you turn around and say, hey, yeah, go ahead and start the movie now, right? And you sit there, and your eyes are all boggled. And the whole thing is so absolutely surreal, you barely remember the movie. You're like, oh, I picked that name, Garrett Blake. I know where Morehead City is, right? It's all these things that were from your novel. You're like, wow, wow. You're like this little kid, right? Now you're to the point where you walk out and you're like, well, I think the chemistry was very strong, but we really need to work on the musical score in the third act. Some of the editorial drifts, did you notice how the clouds were there in that one scene, then they were gone the next? We're really going to have to talk to the editor about that, right? So that's where we are now, right? Because we've done it so many times. So you're asking right about the middle. And it was right in the middle, right? You're not struck by the surrealism, but you're not in tune to all of the nuances of film. So you're probably most apt to sit back and say, wow, I thought they did a really nice job, I mean, that's it. Did I expect after seeing that film that it would air on cable 100 times a year, 10 years later or whatever? Every year? No. I mean, I thought it was good, right? But, they have these really, really corny lines in there, right? Like, say you're a bird. If you're a bird, I'm a bird. People love this line, right? Because it was the way it was delivered, and this is meaningful to people, and I understand that now. But, for instance, if I'm sitting there in the theater watching that the first time, I don't get it at that time, right? I don't. Okay?
Actually, Vinny set up my question pretty well. It's pretty inescapable that your books turn into movies. So I'm wondering, when you're write, do you start thinking about it as a movie, and do you set up scenes in ways that would translate well on screen nowadays?
That is a great question, and it's difficult to answer. The answer is yes and no. Yes and no. I am aware that there is a very high potential that it'll be a film. But there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. And if there's no guarantee, in the end, I have to write the best novel that I can. So essentially what happens is it just makes the bar that much higher that you have to jump over. Because what you're trying to do is to write a story that works on any number of levels, and you want it to be original and interesting and yet feel like it can happen to anyone, right? But if you're dealing with a concept like originality, the bar is higher now because it just can't be original for a novel. It's also got to be original for film. So, for instance, I could never write a novel that resembled Sweet Home Alabama. I could never write a love story set on the Titanic, right? This sounds obvious, but see, these were never novels. They would be original as novels, but I can't do them because I have to be aware that they might make this into a film, and you want some of these images to be real. So essentially what has happened is it raises the bar for those things. It makes it, your story has to be that much better, and so it takes longer to conceive. But once you conceive the novel, and you say, okay, it'll be original. If it gets picked up for film, it'll also be original there. Then the process reverts to what it always was, and that was you just try to write the best novel that you can, again, because there's no guarantee. How's that?
Great. So Kathy Elias asks, what was it like working with the amazing, unbelievably hot Zac Efron?
Well, I like Zac. I mean, how was it? When you're involved in a level where I am, you look for different things, right? What was I looking for when I worked with Zac? I really wanted someone who cared passionately about the role, and he was really willing to put the work in necessary. And I wanted someone who would work with the director and, just be the consummate professional and really put in a strong performance. So you're looking for that on a professional level. And then on a personal level, look, I bring my little girls. I have daughters, right? I have 5 children. But my daughters, they saw High School Musical, right? They wanted to see Zac Efron. So they're like, Daddy, can we go to the set? You're like, yes, let's go. And so you bring them, right? So what would you want, right? If they're your daughters, what would you want Zac to do? Be nice to them, right? That's really what you want. You want him to bend down, say hi, talk to them, take a picture with them, right? Just be nice. Okay, he was. And he's really genuinely Zac doesn't, he's a really nice guy. He doesn't have a mean bone in his body. So on a professional level, you get everything you want. And then on a personal level, you get what what you expect or what you hope for. So for me, the hot part didn't really play into it as much, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But these other things, it was great.
Unbelievably amazing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he was. Actually, his performance was unbelievably amazing. When you see him, he does not look like young Zac. He looks like he's on his way to being a real leading man in the future. He plays a young man. And he's 24, and we wanted him because he's the same age as the Marines that live in my town. If you're not an officer, you're 18 to 25. So he was perfect.
Thank you.
I have a quick question for you. Obviously, you've written quite a number of books. Which one's your favorite?
Ooh, which one's my favorite? Couple of ways to answer that. I think the one that was my favorite was 3 Weeks with My Brother. Right? That's a memoir, and I like that story. It was a story about a trip that my brother and I took around the world, and this trip took 3 weeks, hence the highly original title, 3 Weeks with My Brother. And you know what this is about, though? It tells the story. You'll learn a little bit about me and all this stuff, but really it's a story about brotherhood, and it's about family, because my brother and I, we had a very challenging period for a while. I lost my mother and my father and my younger sister in a relatively short period of time, so that the only ones left in our family were my brother and I. We were the only ones left. But how do you get beyond the death of your family? How do you do that? You got to have someone there, right? And for me, it was my brother. So it's a story about brotherhood, but it's a story about the power of family. It's a story about healing. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and you learn a little bit about the world. So to me, that is the book I recommend. Hey, you've never read me? Try this one, right? I can't say you'll like exactly the novels that every novel, right? Everyone has different opinions on novels and what kind they like to read. But this is a memoir of sorts. But it's really a memoir that I think make you closer to your own family, and that I think is, or hopefully will inspire you to be as close to your family as you possibly can be.
So you may have just answered this question, but Destione Pinkham asks, if you could live your life out as any one of the characters from your book, which one would you choose to be?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough question. I could be any of the guys. Do you know why? Because when I create these female characters, they're all the woman that I married, in a way. That's why. And I mean that, right? Oh, that's such a cheap answer. I can hear the wheels spinning. Engineers and all. Put some oil in the wheels. They're squeaking. No, really, that's true, because when I create these female characters, they're all a little bit. They're like my wife, right? They're intelligent, passionate, sense of humor. They're loyal. They love deeply. They've got all these great qualities. And the guys, literally, in all these novels, have to prove themselves worthy of having a girl like this. I've done it over and over, and it's what I find most attractive. So it doesn't matter whether you're Landon or whether you're Logan or whether you're Noah or whether you're John, right? In the end, you know what you're getting? You're getting the girl, and she's a good girl. So there you go.
Thanks.
3 Weeks with My Brother was one of my favorite books, and so I was wondering if you were going to write something sort of different like that again, and if you enjoyed writing that.
Yeah, that was 3 weeks with my brother. I have been debating. It's in my contract. I can write another nonfiction book, and so of my choice. And so I'm debating it. If I was to do it and go that route, I would do something like it's called 10 Days with My Son. It would be a book about fatherhood, because my son and I, we had his. He was a track runner and I was his coach, right? This is a very interesting relationship. If you coach your son, and especially if you are as immensely talented as my son was. My son holds the junior world record in track and field. He's very immensely talented, and yet he didn't much care about running, right? And so it's a very interesting relationship, and he's such a nice young man, and so I would write something about that, the lessons you learn in trying to, be the best father you can be. And I'm not claiming I was just saying there's a lot of things you learn on the way. Parenting is hard. Marriage is hard. These relationships are challenging, and all you can do is try to do your best, right?
So September Grace asks, what is the number one piece of advice you would give to an unknown writer? I would love this chance because I admire your ability. I dream of writing for a living.
The number one piece of advice you can have, and I have given this advice over and over and over, and I don't know how many people ever follow it. I mean, that's the thing about advice, right? They don't want advice. They want it to be handed to them. But really, if you want to do anything well, you have to learn from people who do it well, right? This is the best way to do it. So you have to read a lot. You have to read. If you want to be a writer, you have to read. You have to read across a variety of genres. If you want to write like me, you can't only read me, because my ability to write like me comes from the fact that I've read a lot of suspense novels, because some of my novels have suspense in them. I've read a lot of horror novels, because some of my novels can get scary. I've read a lot of novels about just family matters, because I deal with father-daughter stories or mother-son stories. So you have to read across a variety of things, and then you have to read with an eye toward what authors do well, and then how they do it well. Like if you are reading a novel and you say to yourself, wow, I really like this character. Well, take a moment to figure out why if you want to be a writer. Why? Why do I like this character? Was it her voice or his voice? How many pages did that take? Was it primarily narrative or dialogue? Or did something happen and it was some event that she did that really made me like her? How long did it take me for like her? Did I like her 10 pages ago, or did it come on suddenly? Why did it come on suddenly? Was there kind of a buildup to this? So if you really read with an eye toward learning what works and what doesn't work, well, little by little, you'll accumulate the knowledge you need to write these kinds of scenes in my novel. If you learn how to make a great character you like, well, now you know how to do it. So that's what you have to do. You have to read with that, and then, of course, you have to start putting it down on paper.
So who and what do you read?
I read everything. I read about 120 books a year. I read all the time. It's probably 40% nonfiction, and nonfiction is history, economics, and biographies. But if they're biographies, they're not celebrities or politicians. So any other biography. You have to be dead before I'll read about you, essentially. And as far as the other 60%, it's a lot of commercial fiction. That's what I write. You can learn from this. I've read the classics. I read, if I'm going to a foreign country to tour, I'll read something from one of their well-known authors. I'll read selected literary fiction, anything. If it's good, I'll read it. There you go. And that's, in the end, that's really what I want. I want it to be good for what it's supposed to be. You know, if it's going to be literary fiction, I want it to be good literary fiction, or I don't like it. If it's a horror novel, well, you better scare me, or I don't like it, right?
Thank you. All right, I have one final question. It's from Mary Smith. My question is, how do you get inside the heads of women so well? You often write from a woman's perspective, and it is always so accurate.
Yes. You see, the secret is I'm from Venus. I don't know. Yeah, I had a great mom, right? I married well. My agent is a female. My editor is a female. And in the end, I just try to create real people. And I think that if you're male or female, when you're sad, it kind of feels the same, but your reaction to that might be a little bit different because I don't know. I just do. I maybe it's just because I really like women, right? I like women. I try to understand them, but we'll see. You try and put in how they would relate to what you do, I guess.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was
Thanks.
such a pleasure.
Thank you.